Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your latest Leeds United news and of course transfer news. I hope you're all having a fantastic Tuesday, of course. It is absolutely boiling in the UK at this moment in time. So I bought myself one of them bottles that keeps water cold, which I will be taking throughout the stream today. Otherwise, I might actually burn to death. It is that hot today. But as I said, hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. There's loads to get into today, if I'm being honest. The YEP talking this morning, obviously, about Leeds United working on 3 deals at this moment in time, which we do know about. They are in the signing scale. And I think, to be honest with you, the one that we're getting close to at this moment in time from all the reports you're hearing is, of course, Harry Wilson. I think he's the one that Leeds United have been after. We know I think he's an obvious priority signing for Leeds United this summer. And I think he's the one that is the closest of the 3 at this moment in time. You had Ben Jacobs saying that. You had other people talk about that as well. Obviously, we know Baron Cross, Graham Smith, everybody who you think might talk about Harry Wilson coming to Leeds is looking like likely. And I think when you look around, basically Baron Cross, not Baron Cross, basically Ben Jacobs said today regarding Harry Wilson, of course, as well, that basically he's leaving Fulham. So that kind of pulls Fulham off the table as well. So yeah. Really good update there, so we'll talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk a bit about sort of what Robbie Evans has been saying as well about this two-sided transfer window, so we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk, as I said, we're going to talk about Julian Brandt, Shea Charles. There's loads to get into today, to be honest with you. Absolutely loads. But apologies if I'm slightly off it as well, because it is just so hot. Trying to concentrate on doing the show is particularly difficult. So I hope you guys can help me out with a like, subscribe, and appreciate the effort today that I'm going to put in by doing a show at this time specifically, because, as I said, it is absolutely boiling. Yorkshire Dangler says, hello, mate. Hope you're well. Some fantastic business being attempted here by Leeds. Dare I say it, Europe, here we come. Mate, you are shooting for the stars right now. We have got, as I said yesterday, the passport ready to go. But no, I think, obviously, even Robbie Evans said this with what he said the other day, where he talked about the fact that still feet on the ground, still trying to remain in division. But you would expect, truthfully, I think looking at the outset now, you bring Shea Charles in, you bring Harry Wilson in, you bring sort of Julian Brandt in, and realistically, the chance that we get relegated surely starts the nosedive. You wouldn't expect at that point Leeds United to get relegated. Danny says, even in Scott, smash a like and subscribe. Yeah, you could do that, people. It'd be absolutely fantastic. As I said, it is... it's very, very hot. So I'm sure you guys can appreciate me doing a show for you guys today. Tell you what, man, knows how to do a thumbnail design. Fair play. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. I essentially just have a template and I just sort of change it every day. But that's kind of it. But I appreciate that. Even if Scott can't wait for tomorrow. But I won't ruin the surprise. Do you know some inside information? Tarts. Surely Wilson's up to a 5, surely. Yeah, look, I think obviously today, I don't know if people watched the show yesterday, but if you did watch the show yesterday, you will know that Harry Wilson was a 3 on the signing scale out of 5. I have actually moved him to a 4 out of 5 now. So I think there's 80% chance. But truthfully, I think I would say that right now, Harry Wilson's about a 90% chance of coming to Leeds. I think we are really, really close. We've sort of heard for a while that obviously from the back burners that Leeds United are sort of looking at Harry Wilson. I remember even the likes of Harry Crackling saying that Leeds United was a number 1 priority target was Harry Wilson. But the worry was that I think Aston Villa and Everton might sort of disrupt the process of Leeds United trying to get Harry Wilson. But it looks like them 2 clubs either don't quite want Harry Wilson, don't quite fit it, or the sales pitch to Harry Wilson from them clubs hasn't been as good, because everything you're hearing from every single journalist is that Leeds United are favourites for this signing. Leeds United want Harry Wilson. And looks like Harry Wilson as a priority wants Leeds United as well. So as I said, I think we're if you wanted an actual rating for Harry Wilson right now, I think you're looking probably about a 4.5, maybe even a 4.8 out of 5 rating for him coming. Imagine Not Being Lee says, now then, Scott, look forward to our catch up tomorrow, buddy. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm going on Matty's channel tomorrow at 9 PM. So if you want to see me and Matty battle it out, and we always do battle it out because we don't always agree, then definitely come over there tomorrow at 9 PM. But I will give a shout out to that show, obviously, after my show tomorrow as well. All right, mate. All right, mate, is not enough for you. All right, mate, is not enough for you. Matching together. I'm not sure what you mean there, mate, but all right, mate, is not enough. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong, but yeah. Afternoon, Scott and all matched on together. I've pressed the wrong one. What a clown. That's that one. Bloody I'm not sure. Hi. Hi, I'm new to your channel. Big Leeds fan living in Spain. Great channel. Thank you very much, mate. I massively appreciate that. I do massively appreciate it. I'm super excited about Harry Wilson, my favourite player, and wanted him for so long. Harry Wilson's my favourite player and wanted him for so long. Yeah, I think obviously you're probably not in the minority there, Richard. I think truthfully, I've just said it 6 times, I think. But with Harry Wilson, the best thing I think Leeds United have done with the Harry Wilson deal is we went for him last summer. And obviously we went again in January. We sort of had a little test there to see if it's something that Fulham would be open to. And I kind of believe that Harry Wilson has looked at that and gone, wow, this football club has a plan for me. This football club desperately wants me. They're not just jumping on the back of a really good season I've had, and they're not just going, oh, now I want you, whereas last season I wouldn't have had you. They see what I can bring even before the season I've just had, and even before the numbers that we've just had as well. So yeah, I'm looking at Harry Wilson at this moment in time, and I think what's happened with Harry Wilson is that's something that's massively contributed to coming. I also think, to be honest, I know we've talked about it on the channel as well, but I think the Welsh connection is a thing. I can just see it being a thing. You can see Joe Rodon, Carl Darlow, Ethan Ampadu, who we all know really like being here, really like the project of Leeds United. You can see them selling that to Wilson as well. And I think he'll like the camp at Wales with under Craig Bellamy. It's well known that it's a really good atmosphere at the Wales camp. And obviously some of the leaders in that team are a lot of the Leeds United players. When you look at Ampadu and Rodon and Dowles, etc. So I think they've probably been a huge swader. And we obviously heard Ampadu talking a few weeks ago saying that he has tried to convince Wilson to sort of join the football club. And I said, I think all these things included are a massive positive. The only thing that's slightly concerning with the deal is that we're obviously offering him a long contract. Now, you can't always have your cake and eat it. It goes without saying. And obviously, that's probably what it's going to take to get this deal over the line, in truth. But I wouldn't want to see a 5-year deal. I think a 4-year deal is probably about as long as possible. The guy is 29 years old. So if he was on a 5-year deal, that'd take him to 34, which is probably too long, especially on the money that he's probably demanding. So I think a 3 or 4 year deal is probably about right for someone that's 29 years old. But it's nice to bring someone in who's provided them numbers last season. Like I was saying this, like if Harry Wilson was a few years younger, by the way, and he had 3 years from his contract, this would be a player with 17 goal contributions who probably upward of 50 million quid, genuinely in the market. Now, of course, he's 29 years old, and that pays into this. And also, obviously, he's got no years left in his contract, hence we're getting him for free. But you just think this is still the same player that if he was 26 years old would be worth that price point. But obviously, the age sort of naturally sways price. Of course, it does. But what a deal Leeds United to get. And we've talked about who would you want out of Shea Charles, Harry Wilson and Brandt as a priority. And for me, I know a lot of you guys are massive on Julian Brandt, and I understand that. Guys done it for year on year on year. Whereas I think the thing with Harry Wilson has always been that, well, he had a fantastic year last year, but the year before that and the year before that, constantly he hasn't been in them numbers every single year. But again, you're not going to get them players. If he'd have put 17 goal contributions together for the last 5 seasons, he wouldn't be going to Leeds United. So you've got to be realistic as well with transfers. But as I said, it's nice that we've got him at his peak at this moment in time and when he's at his best ability. And when you look, as I said, what he can bring to this Leeds United team, I think I can understand why he's a #1 priority for Leeds, because we've talked about the set piece delivery that he can bring. We've talked about the creation that we can bring. We've talked about the as I said, we've talked about his free kick specialist as well, because we've obviously got Stack, who's good on right-sided free kicks and right-sided corners. We ain't got that left-sided player that can do that. Bringing Harry Wilson, your numbers from corners might go up as well. And obviously, he's generally one of the probably top 5 free kick takers in the Premier League as well. So he just sort of plugs a gap for so many different parts of his game. And as I said, when we've looked at, I was talking to someone today about this as well, when I was talking about Leeds, and they were asking me, and I was saying, if you looked at one thing in the sort of Leeds United world that Leeds United are missing when you look at sort of some of the poor results we had going into running, it was creation. And I think Harry Wilson brings you that. Yes, he's a goal scorer, but he did provide 7 assists last year, which I think would be the highest in the Leeds United squad. I don't think anyone in the Leeds squad's provided 7 assists last year. So I think that's a huge, huge positive for us. I really do. Have you heard anything about Marnie from Wolves? No, I haven't, Mark. I haven't. Hi, Scott. How long would you give Wilson, bearing in mind if at 29? I think I'd answered that, but probably maximum 4 years. Probably, hopefully 3. Evening, Bud. Great to see movement on the signing scale. We're cooking. We are indeed cooking, mate. And yeah, the signing scale, it should be sort of the cooking scale. No, God, no. That sounds like something from Mary Berry on, what's Mary Berry do? Great British Bake Off. There you are. No, we're not doing the Great British Bake Off here. Alvedi said he's up to joining Leeds. Yeah, I haven't seen that, mate, but I'm not saying that's not the case. I think with Alvedi, if you want to sort of talk about this, it wasn't in the notes, but I will answer your question. I don't mind the signing of Alvedi. 29 years old. I think played for Farke before, of course. It's just he's not left-footed, so it's kind of how does he kind of fit? But obviously, it would be a cheap deal. A lot of people have said with Elvedi, which I think is plausible, that could you do a Bornau sort of Elvedi swap in some regard? Now, not obviously that he's going to go back to Mönchengladbach where Elvedi's come from, but could you sell sort of Bornau for maybe 3 to 4 million and bring Elvedi in for sort of 8 million quid and spend 4 million and sort of do that swap potentially? What is his wages going to be? For Wilson, I would expect in the region of £100,000 a week. I think it's going to be an expensive deal. And my brother said to me, "Are you not worried, Scott, about bringing expensive players in at this price? At this price point, like we know, obviously, it's damaged Aston Villa in terms of what they can do in the market." And my first response to my brother is, "Well, if we're copying Aston Villa's policy, we're not doing too bad considering they've been in 2 Champions Leagues in the last 3 seasons. So if that's what it takes, then yeah." Hey up, Scott. I've said it before that 49ers are smooth operators and get good deals through the door. It's going to be fascinating. All leads out, we says Day. 100%, mate. 100%. My only concern is if we sign Brandt at the physicality, he has never played in the Prem before. Yeah, well, I think when we talked about Wilson versus Brandt, probably the reason I like Harry Wilson more than Brandt is just he's done it in the Premier League. Now, that doesn't mean that Brandt can't do in the Premier League. I think when you come out of the Bundesliga, truthfully, if you want a league that mirrors the attributes of the Premier League the best, it probably is the Bundesliga. When you look at how that league is, it's a fast, sort of pressing, strong, physical league is the Bundesliga. The Serie A is probably more defensive, slower. La Liga is a bit more sort of possession-based, but actually Bundesliga is quite sort of high press, physical sort of league. So that's probably the best in terms of switch if you want to go into the Premier League. But you are right in terms of it's still a step up in the Premier League because I still think the technical level of teams in the Premier League is another level, and I think obviously the mid-table teams in the Premier League would absolutely smash the Bundesliga teams, which is what you've seen in the Europa League in the last few seasons. All Boxed Up says for trying to find the heat, Scott, and big up Matty. Yeah, thank you very much, mate. I almost feel like with that comment I should split the money with Matty, although I'm not good at Matty, I'm afraid. But yeah, I massively appreciate a super chat, mate. I'd very rarely get them. So I always say you don't think you need to super chat for the channel. You don't need to do that. You viewing is absolutely enough. But if you want to do that, legends, absolute legend. And All Boxed Up, you are a hero, mate. Thank you very much. As I said, I don't earn much doing this, and I am sweating like a dog, as you can probably see on the camera. So there you are. Hey up, Scott lad. Cherry, cheers for the information, mate, says Carl. No worries, mate. Thank you for joining the channel as always. The cooking scale. Yeah. Harry Wilson is a beef Wellington on the cooking scale, definitely up there. Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I mean, I had... What would it be on the cooking scale for me? I have a lot of... I mean, I'm a bit boring because I go to the gym and I like sort of chicken and spinach, which sounds a bit dead to you guys. But, yeah, I mean, to be honest, when the transfer window ends, we could change this signing scale to be the cooking scale and have all my meals of the week if you'd like. Matty's actually joined the members club. Matty, you're a hero for that, mate. Thank you very much. You didn't need to do that, but you're an absolute legend. Does that mean I have to do it to you now as well, potentially? But yeah, thank you very much. Elvedi replaces Bornau. Hope we don't replace Strout with Krejci, 100%. We still need a number 1 keeper. We do. I think the keeper situation, to be honest, I've seen obviously this link to Suzuki, and I've seen a lot of you guys really like Suzuki. I don't think he's worth the money, if I'm honest. Now, if Leeds United drop sort of 25 to 30 million pound on Suzuki, I'd be slightly concerned. Now, I always say this, I haven't confessed to have watched Suzuki loads and loads and loads, but I have watched him the other night against Japan when they played against the Dutch, and he did look suspect from corners. And I always said, if you're recruiting a goalkeeper, the one thing that I definitely want, especially with the way the Premier League's played at this moment, and how important set pieces and corners and bloody and stuff like that is how important them stuff is in the game at this moment in time. When you look at what Arsenal are doing, you want a keeper who is an absolutely unbelievable on set pieces. And Suzuki didn't strike me as that, if I'm honest. Would be great if we get Brandt as well. It's a big statement and it'll be very difficult. It'll be very difficult though. Yeah, I think it will. I think obviously it sounds like I would have expected actually that Brandt was an easier deal than Wilson, but it does sound the opposite. It does sound like to be honest, that Brandt is the harder one. Brandt is the harder one. Yeah, sounds good on the cooking scale. Here we come. Well, if that's what you guys want, well, let's bring a cooking show. And I may say, sorry, I'm laughing about a cooking show. And I may say big up to supporting the channel. Thank you very much. Oh, I like that. Make it a show format that you need to cook something for the country of our man of the match on stream. I don't know if I could do that, mate. Honestly, I don't think you guys want to see me cooking. What I've got with cooking, I don't know where we're going here. I'm pretty good at certain dishes. Like fajitas, I'm not so bad at. We've got a stone to make homemade pizzas, so I make homemade pizza quite well. We've got a bread maker that helps with that as well. Gets the dough, put the stone in the oven for half an hour before, and you get quite a nice pizza. Can do that quite well. Can do fajitas quite well. As I said, I have chicken and spinach quite a lot, so I'm quite good at that. Different sauces, stuff like that. Rest of it, I'm not. Truthfully, it's not my forte. I must admit. I know I didn't, but I wanted to love your channel and genuine personality. Sky's the limit for you, Scott, and I'll be sat happily watching. Just a thank you from me to you, pal. Thank you very much, mate. You're an absolute hero. You are a legend. Michael says, evening, Scott. Nice to see you in the chat, mate. What's the max we should pay for Charles or walk away? Southampton rejected 20, so 22, 25, 30 or more. Well, there is actually an update about Shea Charles, actually. I don't know if people have seen this. Now, the source is Football Insider, so like I always said, take this with a pinch of salt. We'll add the salt to the cooking show, but take this with a pinch of salt. In truth, regarding obviously this because it is, as I said, it is the Football Insider saying it. But according to the Football Insider, Southampton are looking for around £25 million for Shea Charles. I think that's about right. I think when you bid 20 million with add-ons, I think we're probably all expecting it probably to end up at 25 with add-ons. Now that's just maybe because you want a round, sort of almost a round number, which obviously 25 would be. I think that's about right though. If it starts with 30 plus add-ons, I think that's getting too much. And I don't think they'll do that because that would be a 50% increase in the price point from the 20 million. Obviously, that would be 10 million, so an extra 50% on to what we originally paid. I would be surprised if Leeds United go up a 50% extra. So yeah. But yeah, I think 25. I think 25 will do the deal, and I think 25 is about fair, to be honest. I don't think it's a bargain though. I think when we've looked in the market in previous years, when you look at what we've done with Stack, when you look at what we've done with Goodmanson, loads of players, we have actually got, in my opinion, bargains. I don't think that's a bargain, but I do think it's about price right, because I think you've got to bear in mind the 22-year-old age, because if he has 2 good seasons at Leeds United in the Premier League, look at the price that Elliot Anderson is going for, who I believe is just a year older than Shea Charles would be at 24 in 2 years. Look at the price point that Elliot Anderson is at. It's about £120 million. So you can make some serious money at them ages. You really can. Think I'll wait until players sign before believing it. Sorry to be a downer, mate. It's up to you. You do it in the way you want. I always say that this is I don't give information out. I'm not an ITK. I haven't got any inside information at all. If I did, I'd share it, but I don't have it. But I just really talk about the news. That's what we do here. I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware. We need a goalkeeper with functioning arms, except for Darlow. I don't think we'll get Darlow. Yeah, well, Darlow, Wilson and Brandt, like I've all said, and I don't want to bore you guys by saying the same thing over and over again, but their futures will be decided by the 30th of June. The 30th of June is where their contracts expire. We're now getting closer and closer to the 30th of June. What, we're now 7 days away, a week away from the 30th of June. In a week's time, we will know the outcome. I think it'll be this week. I said last Friday that Harry Wilson, I think, will have a decision on by this Friday, and I'm still sticking to that. That might be slightly, the days are running out with that. I've only got 3 days left after today for that. But I'm going with that. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to say Harry Wilson is done by Friday. Josh Doger's a left back backup for Gabby. Could be a shout, actually. I've seen a few people talk about him for other clubs actually online when I've listened to sort of other shows. So yeah, could be an option. The only thing with the left back situation, mate, is like I've always said, it's a tricky position to recruit, because when you look at it, you can't really bring in. Goodmanson is going to be our starting left back, so it's tricky sort of where you go with that, because for me, you're looking at a senior statesman or a young player, because they're not going to realistically get in above Goodmanson, especially at the start. So I don't think we want someone who's almost challenging it. I'm happy with Goodmanson to be our starting left back, and then I just think we need someone who can be back up when he doesn't play. Poor lad cooking, looks like you're actually cooking stuck in that heat, Scott. Pretty much, mate, pretty much. In fact, you've actually just reminded me. It's going to be like the hydration breaks. We're going to need a hydration break, although it won't be as long. We won't throw adverts on it, don't worry. Oh. There we are. Popeye's Kid Scott, the Spanish eater. Well, thank you for that. I love that name, mate. Fantastic. What are the tier ones except YEP, BBC and Sky Sports? Well, you've obviously got The Athletic, I would say definitely tier 1. And I would say Fabrizio Romano's pretty tier 1 as well. Apparently, we turned down a bid of 15 for Perry in January. I have seen this, mate, around. I just don't believe it to be true. I have seen that, though. I have seen that. 2 left-footed alternatives to Strauch. Bitshabu from Leipzig and Osterwald from Fenerbahce. I've seen Osterwald. We talked about Osterwald, actually, in the January transfer window, mate, as a potential option for Leeds United. And I think Leeds United were... I don't know how reliable the outlet was, but I remember doing a show about Osterwald in January. So maybe, yeah. We need to give defenders confidence, as we've seen Rodon's response when Melier got it wrong. That is true, mate. That is true. Would you go back in for Milinkovic-Savic? Leeds have a history of going back in for missed targets. Yeah, I think Milinkovic-Savic, by the way, is about 6'8". He's absolutely enormous. Now, of course, he's gone to Napoli this year. I believe he's playing for Napoli at this moment. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he was playing. I'm sure I checked to see how he was getting on, to see if Leeds United might go in for it. So I don't think we're going to get him out of Napoli, but someone like him I think would be perfect. Lee says, you do a great job, Scott. I'm sick of listening to the rhetoric. You lads need new links. We can only do this for so long as... I'm not fully sure what you mean there, mate, but thank you for the start. I did feel that Leeds should have gone for Kelleher, the Brentford keeper, when he became available. Brentford signed him for 12.5 million with add-ons, a proven keeper, Premier League level, and an international. Yeah, truthfully, I remember talking about Kelleher last season, obviously before I went to Brentford. And yeah, you're right. We should have gone for Kelleher. That was a deal we should have done. Now I think he probably would have favoured going to Brentford just because they're a more established Premier League club. Had it been this summer, I think we could have had more chance of getting Kelleher. But for the price point at the start, do you remember Kelleher? They were talking about sort of 30 to 40 million, and it just never ended up being that. Never ended up being that at all. Hi Scott, I don't get where they're wanting. Hi Scott, I don't get where they're wanting 30 million for Shea, currently worth 15 on transfer market, and he's got 1 year left in his contract. I think 20 was a great offer. Truthfully, we've had a few people talk about transfer market in the last day. I don't know where transfer market get their price points from. I think transfer market's price points, as a bit of a roundabout statement, are bollocks. I don't know what rationale is it from transfer market. They're not... Transfer market are the ones buying or selling the players. So how they think they can just pull a number out their ass, I don't know. I don't really get that. I've always had people quoting that, and I don't want to, like, they're obviously a credible sort of source, and they've got great news and stuff on there, and obviously they've got loads of information. It's a good website. Where their market values come from, I'll never know. Because as far as I'm aware, Shea Charles, to be honest with you, and who say I know more than transfer market, maybe I don't, but there's just so many more nuances that go into a transfer other than just what transfer marks say, if I'm honest. So I just don't... I never really look into that. I sort of have my own opinion, if I'm honest. Price point of Van is because of Marinakis, nothing else. He will command a price, and if there are any takers, they will get him with a hard businessman. True, but I think if you look at midfielders, mate, over the last few years, look at Moises Caicedo at Brighton, he were over £100 million as well. Like, that's if you want a top-level midfielder now, sort of 24 and younger, they are in and around the £100 million mark. So all I'm saying with Shea Charles is, if you can develop him into a top midfielder in the Premier League over the next few seasons, he will be a player that could sell in the market for over £100 million because there's... And Ali Anderson is not the only example of this. As I said, you only have to throw out the likes of Caicedo, who's at the same breadth. Goalkeeper I've loved is Noah Atubulu or Alexander Noel. Love our goalkeepers. Would love our goalkeeper position for years. Yeah, Nubel's an interesting one because we were linked with Nubel, of course, a few years ago. I think before we bought someone, we were linked with him, I'm sure. And yeah, he's had a really good season, hasn't he? So yeah, it could be an option. 30 views, 130 in the live. Smash the like, subscribe. Yeah, if you are new to the channel, by the way, I presume there's quite a few of you guys new in the channel today. If you could help the channel by dropping a like and subscribe, that would massively help me. Obviously, I am a channel trying to grow, naturally, like all channels. And as you can see, I'm literally, 23 subscribers now away from 2,800 subscribers. So if you get there today, that will be absolutely fantastic. That will be absolutely fantastic. With the players we are in for, we will be top 10. Truthfully, with transfers, and we'll talk about this at the end of the transfer windows more, I always think a lot of people usually get really excited when you hear about transfers all the time. And I usually I'm really excited. This isn't to say I'm not excited about these players coming in, But I usually like to see how it goes for the first few weeks to see if they work or not, because I've seen so many signings where on paper just looks like a banker and it just not been quite what I've seen. I'd even throw Pro in there. Now, I know Pro got top scorer last, obviously in the Championship season when we got promoted. But I thought when we signed Pro, we were signing a player that was just going to absolutely romp it, and it didn't quite work in the same way that I thought. And maybe that's poor scouting on my behalf. But I do like to see how it goes, because I've seen, as I said, I've seen so many transfers where Leeds United have made them. You think, what a signing this is going to be, and it doesn't quite work. And I've also seen the reverse side where, in my opinion, it looks like Leeds have had a bad transfer window, probably a bit like last season, and it works out fantastically well. So, you know. Ellen Back says, hi Scott, nice to see you in the chat, mate. We're having a good time of it. Evening Scott, lots of noise on X that Wilson is all done minus the announcement. Obviously he belongs to Fulham until 11:55 on Monday. Exactly, mate, exactly. But like you say, Agent Smith, and like we've said for a while on this channel, that's when it's going to be. That's when we're going to find out about the news, truthfully. Would you loan any players with an option to buy? Many clubs are doing this, such as Villa. Like the idea of it before you buy. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I think when you look at someone like a Pender as an example, if you could get a Pender on with a loan with an option to buy, that's absolutely perfect, because then you can see what sort of a Pender you get in that first season. If you get the Pender that we saw a few years ago at Leipzig, where he scored like 24 goals in the league, then you look at a player that you think, wow, what a signing that would be, and what a great bit of business with a loan with obligation to buy, option to buy, should I say. But they're the perfect deals. It's just very hard deals to do, and you've got to have a club on the other side, the selling club, being really desperate for the sale for that to happen. So maybe later in the window, if Juventus sort of really want rid of a Pender, maybe they'd be open to that. But right now, they wouldn't obviously do that, because they'd be waiting to see if someone pays the money this summer. 42 likes, need to get this to 80. Yeah, if you could do that, people, that'd be fantastic. For the backup left back position, don't forget we've got Lenayu coming through. So it would be better to go for an older player for a year or so until Lenayu is ready for step up. Yeah, it's probably a good point, actually, mate. It's probably a good point. A Leeds live revival? Yeah, they are, yeah. I've been told Leeds didn't offer 20 mil for Shea Charles. I was told it was 15 plus add-ons, making the deal around 20 million. Well, if that's the case, then there's probably quite a bit of budgeting to go. But I think, as I said, I think we will get Shea Charles. I think my main worry about Shea Charles was if other clubs are going to come in. Like, we know, obviously, Man United have been sniffing around earlier in the window, and they've sort of not made the move. And it was reported today by a few outlets on the sort of Manchester United end as well, that their sort of race to get Shea Charles is over now. They're not going to sort of pursue that target. So I think this deal will get done, because I think that Southampton need a sale before the 30th of June, by the sounds of it. I think Leeds have obviously got the money before the 30th of June because of what Joe Blackburn said the other day about the fact that we've probably got money that we had spare because of what happened with Leeds United finishing 14th and getting that extra money in comparison to finish 17th. So we have got a bit of money spare for this book sheet anyway for this year. So I think Shea Charles will get done, because I think Southampton need to sell, Leeds want him, and there's no other club that wants him. So yeah. Charles is probably at a stage similar to what Ampadu was, where he came to us, a bit pricier. If he kicks on like Ampadu, he'll be a decent investment. Exactly, mate. Exactly. Player values come from two parts: current ability plus future potential. Transfer market is current ability value. The challenge is calculating the future potential, as this is subjective. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. But it's also like, for example, Ethan Ampadu in this market is probably worth, I think, maybe about 60 million quid. That's what I believe he's probably worth. Would I sell him if I was a Leeds United? If I was Leeds United for 60 million pounds? No, because he's just too important to us. It's not that he's worth more to Leeds than that, even though he's probably not worth more than that. Like, for me, I probably wouldn't. I don't know if I'd sell Ampadu for 70. Or even, like, I don't know what I'd sell him for, because he's almost priceless to us, because he's so important and we just can't replace what he gives us. So how does transfer market confirm that and get involved in them sort of conversations? It just can't, can it? Man City have a selling clause for Shea. That's why Southampton want 30 million. Well, it's too bad, isn't it? If they, in the same breath, if they need the sale and they need the money, then it'll get agreed. But the Leeds won't overpay. I think Leeds will go a bit more. We saw this with Sean Longstaff last year, where I think we put 3 or 4 bids in and we finally got our man. But I think Leeds United will walk away eventually. They will. They'll have in their mind right now what the max will be. Farke wanted Newell last season, but we ended up with Perry. Yeah, exactly. Just a thought. Do you think Livakovic will be a good shout for our keeper solution? It's funny actually. We talked about Livakovic because obviously I know they conceded 4 against England obviously about a week ago now. But he actually had a really good game, especially in the second half. And yeah, I think he'd be a great shout. I think he's about 32 years old now, experienced, but a really good shot stopper. Not brilliant with his feet, but also quite demanding in terms of crosses. I know England actually scored, obviously, from a corner, but that was more, in my opinion, down to poor marking and defending from Croatia, as opposed to actually being the goalkeeper's problem. So yeah, I've always really liked him. I'm surprised, to be honest, he's still not made it to like a top 5 league. I am surprised at that. I don't love the idea of Ramsdale, but at least he's a known quantity. Him for say 15 million might not be a terrible idea. Truthfully, mate, I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I don't think I'd go for Ramsdale under any circumstance, to be honest. I just don't think I would. Smash a like, subscribe, says Danny. Yeah, if you could do that, as I said, people, there are new people in the channel tonight. So as I said, if you could get me towards sort of 2,800 subscribers, that would be absolutely fantastic. And also, I believe I checked the other day, and still majority of you guys, I think over 50% of you guys who watch the channel regularly, not just people who watch the first time, but people who've watched regularly, I still think over 50% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant. Drinking game for yourself, and imagine not being Leeds. Every time you say truthfully, take a drink. Truthfully, would be absolutely hammered. It's Bowen for hammers to them. He's worth more than anyone can offer, but to the clubs, he's £20 million player. Yeah, exactly. Perfect example with that. Perfect example. I actually saw that Bowen is actually a target for Villa, which might be why they're obviously not pursuing seemingly in the Harry Wilson race. Ampadu is probably in a similar league to Caicedo, who went for crazy money. I don't think Ampadu is valued particularly high, although he should be. Yeah, it's probably fair. I think as I said, I don't. Obviously, Elliot Anderson is a level above Ethan Ampadu at this moment in time. I think I can say that, and people are not going to slam at me. But yeah, as BMG rightly says, transfer market values Ampadu at 30 million quid. I don't think any of us in the chat right now would sell Ampadu or even consider selling Ampadu for anywhere near 30 million pound. So that, I think that if you want a reason why transfer market's wrong, look at that. What else do I want to talk about? We've talked a bit about Shea Charles. We've talked about Harry Wilson. We've talked a bit about Julian Brandt. Well, I wanted to talk about this actually because this is interesting from Robbie Evans. And I haven't seen anyone else mention this. Apologies, people have, but I haven't seen it. Essentially, Robbie Evans was talking about the summer transfer window. But essentially, yeah, the sort of they were talking about summer. Robbie Evans was talking about the summer transfer window, and like we've talked about in the summer transfer window a bit ourselves on this channel, it's almost split up into 2 transfer windows, is what Robbie Evans was saying, which is kind of what we've said, but kind of phrased in a different way. Essentially, you've got the start of the transfer window, which is players that are not currently playing in the World Cup. So Shea Charles is an example of this, Julian Brandt's an example of this, and obviously Harry Wilson is an example of this as well. And then you've got the second time of the transfer window, when, of course, is the players playing in the World Cup. And we know Leeds United like players in the World Cup. When you lose Krejci as an example there. So what Robbie Evans was essentially saying is we need to try and get our first bit of the window done first, which is obviously players that are not in the transfer window, get that sorted, and then we can focus on players who are playing in the World Cup at this moment in time. So there is sort of this transfer window, more than other transfer window, is almost split up into 2 sections. You've got the start of the window, which is, as I said, players that are not in the World Cup, and then you've got the second part, which is players that are in the World Cup. And it's kind of completing one side of your transfer window first, and then moving on to the second bit afterwards, kind of thing. So what that did say to me is that if you want Krejci to come to the football club, which we've known anyway, but it's going to be Krejci will be a player that will be in the second phase of the transfer window. He will not be in the first phase. I think you're talking the top 3 on there are the first phase of Leeds United's transfer window. That's the point. At some point, would you fancy popping on a video/stream? Got a very, very big fun quiz in mind, including Matty and Mort. I'd be happy to do so, mate. Yep, happy to do so. I'd say the Brandt deal is dead. What would you say that about, though? I don't know. I think there's a good chance we sign Brandt. I don't think that's the case. What about taking West Ham's Juve on loan? West Ham want lower wages and to get quickly re-promoted. If they get promoted, we'll give them back, if we do, for like 15 million, like what happened with Harrison. I don't see that happening, mate. I think if they were going to sell Juve I think with Juve, they would either want to sell this summer to get capital in or keep him. I think that's kind of the situation. What will you stream after the transfer window? We just carry on and talk about the news, mate, in the same format, basically. Jackson Stephen Scott, nice to see you in the chat, mate. Hope you're having a fantastic day. But yeah, what else did I ever discuss? Let me just take a drink quickly because I am so warm now. It's just ridiculous. I think it's fair to say, people, that I will definitely be jumping in a cold shower after this video finishes, or after I finish this stream. I'm also curiously optimistic about getting Brandt, not sure why. I think, mate, it's because we haven't really seen the clubs that are in for him yet. Like, we know Leeds United are one of them, but they've said Champions League club, but they haven't said who it is yet. I think if you saw Champions League club and it was Aston Villa, for example, that were linked to him, we'd all be thinking, crap. Or if it was Liverpool or someone, these clubs are probably not going to be in for Brandt, with the greatest respect. But if it was a club that you look at and go, oh God, they're gonna be probably appear sort of more of a great option for the player, then you'd be a bit worried. But I think the fact we haven't seen that is probably I think that's probably why I feel more optimistic. But as I said, I also say with Brandt, and I say this with Wilson, I say this with Charles, the football club, the 49ers don't like bad PR. No football club does. And what we've seen with the 49ers is they only really say a transfer. They only really say, for the most part, through tier 1 outlets, that they're interested in a player if they think they've got a really good chance of getting him. Because what the 49ers do not want is to say, we're in for Brandt, and then we don't get him, and then everyone goes, oh, what a shame that is. We're Interest FC, or we're Fail FC at the last minute, or whatever you want to, all the names we've heard in the past. So I think the fact that we've seen it come out now from Baron Cross, from obviously Graham Smith, etc., all the tier 1 outlets regarding Brandt, regarding Wilson, regarding Shea Charles, is to me definitely a proof that that we want them players, and we actually think we're going to get them players. So that's kind of my feeling on it, really. Leeds are very soft on selling players, and that's something that needs to be sorted quickly, says Patrick. Yeah, I think we made a few mistakes last summer in the selling process. Like, realistically, we should have been ruthless last summer with Joe Perreault, shouldn't we? Perreault had to leave the summer, the transfer last year. But I must admit, I don't think it's. I always think it's much trickier than we think it is. But you're right. I think Perreault's probably an example of that. I don't think some of the other sales are bad, though. I think we got really good money for the likes of Archie Gray. We couldn't do anything about the Rutter thing, although I thought 40 million was still a good price point. Somerville was probably slightly cheap. But again, he had a release clause. There was not much we could do about there. Kamara, I thought we got good money for him. So I don't know, there's loads of examples that we've sold players cheaply. I think the more examples that you'd say is that we probably haven't sold players that we should have sold. I think that's probably the problem we've had, as opposed to it being the other way around. Yes, we need to sell this window. We do. Brandt's girlfriend has a Spanish residency, and Madrid have held several talks. Why would he come to us? We all know Farke will still pick Aronson over him. Quite a negative comment, Stephen. Is it the heat that's getting to you, mate? Roma and Atletico Madrid. Oh, we have heard that. Yeah, we have, actually. That's my mistake. Yeah, we have. What a moron I am. Maybe the heat. Scott, having a cold shower. Is that a stream for members only? Or just a perk, Scott? It's a stream for members only, mate. Yeah. We're gonna live record me in the shower answering questions about the transfer window, or we could answer questions about food, or different showering techniques potentially. But yeah, if you want to be in that, if you want to be in the members stream, you want to see me in the shower. Yeah, members only, I'm afraid. It's also going to have to be on a different website as well. So there's a website a lot of you have heard of. We're not going to start talking about this. What we're on about. I'm fairly new to your channel. Really enjoy your content. Matty on Imagine Not Being Leeds is excellent. Did you say you're doing something together? We are, Paul. We are. We're going to be on Matty's channel tomorrow at 9. So yeah, so I'll have a stream earlier first, and then not with Matty on, just me alone, and then we'll be on Matty's stream as well. Yeah, exactly. I don't know much about Brandt. Which players he's similar to? Who is Brandt similar to? Well, a few things about his player profile. He's about 6'1", mate. Relatively physical for a number 10, but he's a creator. Like he's got quite a number of sort of assists over the last few years for Dortmund. And I think when you're looking at what he'd offer this Leeds United team, it would be that system. I think when you're looking at how he'd play for Leeds, I've talked him I've talked about Brandt fitting in the sort of 3-5-2 system. Like if you say the set we've got this moment in time in the 3-5-2, you've got sort of Stack, Ampadu and Aronson in midfield when we play the more aggressive 3-5-2. Then you've got sort of Okafor and DCL as your front two. That's kind of Farke's favouted system at this moment in time. So say that's what it would look like. Say Wilson doesn't happen or Wilson's not in the 11 for whatever reason. So you'd have Okafor, DCL, and then I think you'd go Ampadu, Stack, and Brandt would play in that role. And actually, we played quite similar to this in the Wolves at home game. So if anyone remembers the Wolves at home game, and I've said this a few times as well on the channel, Aronson got an assist, I think, for the second goal or maybe the third goal, where he was almost in the right channel, almost where you'd see a right winger be. And I think that's the sort of position that we'd play into. So it'd almost be like out of possession, it'd be like a 3-5-2 or maybe almost like a 3-4-3 almost, with Brandt dropping back more almost and Okafor dropping in a bit more as well. And then, of course, in possession, I think you'd see Brandt sort of occupy that sort of right wing-ish position, but not like hagging the touchline, more sort of in the inside inverted sort of position on the pitch. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, really. If we get Wilson and Brandt, then Aronson becomes a good bench player because he could sub in for either of those two, although we'd be as good, obviously. If we get Wilson and Brandt, then Aronson becomes a good bench player because he could... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. 100%. 100%. Graham Smith was saying that Leeds were generally trying to sign Brandt, Wilson, Shea. Let's be honest, Amps and Stark aren't going anywhere. Where we're going to see some departers if we manage to sign all them three. You've just reminded me, Elland back. It's in my notes, and I've somehow scrolled past it. I wanted to talk about this, actually. I wanted to talk about exits, because it was mentioned in Graham Smith's article, as you obviously rightly say that. Thank you. You've just helped me out with the show massively. If we sign all three, say we've signed all three, say they all come to the football club, we are going to have sales then. There's no doubt about it. The midfield, and it also needs to be as well. Like Farke's talked about in the past as well, which Graham touched upon, that Farke doesn't want a massively overinflated squad, because if there's an overinflated squad, then people are going to be unhappy, because players are unhappy when they don't play. And if you've got too many players for one position, there's only two people that can play in that role. So for me, one of Gruev, Longstaff, or Tanaka are the three I think most likely to exit. I don't see Stack leaving, don't see Ampadu leaving, as you say there, Elland back as well. I think you're talking Tanaka, Gruev, or Longstaff. I think everyone's instant thoughts might be, we want Gruev to go, but we think it might be one of the other two. I don't think Gruev probably leaves because of his injury record, and I don't think we'd get the capital that we'd want from a sale in the middle of the park to fund a Shea Charles move. So I'm talking then about Tanaka or Longstaff, I think, would be the main exit from the midfield. And I'm sort of going back and forth. I think Tanaka makes a bit more sense because we know he wants football guaranteed, and we also know that he was nearly left in January, and we also know he's got 2 left in his contract, and we also, even further than that, know that with Tanaka, he's a player that we could make money book value wise on the books this summer, so would make sense to sell. We bought Tanaka for what, £3 million. His book value, we put on a 4-year deal, so his book value this summer will be £1.5 million. So if we sell him for 10 million this summer, we'd make 8.5 million profit. Now we'd sell him for probably more than 10 million, but he seems obvious. But Longstaff also, there's a real good reason why Longstaff could leave, because he left Newcastle to come to Leeds to play football. If he's not going to play football at Leeds, then he doesn't have any affiliation to Leeds like he had to Newcastle, so you'd expect him to leave as well. So I think there's an argument for both sides between Longstaff and Tanaka, but I don't think it'd be Gruev for Charles, which I think a lot of us want. I think it will be one of Tanaka or Longstaff, is my feeling. Yeah, but the interesting thing with them two is they're both slightly different. Obviously, Tanaka's more of a ball player, and he wants to get on the ball, dictate the game a bit more, whereas Longstaff is more of an athletic runner who sort of is more of an interceptor and better presser and stuff like that. So different profiles, but yeah, I think one of them two does leave. I do think that. It's the book value thing. It's the book value thing. I think you'd have to probably go Tanaka if you were guessing. Curso was the worst one to sell cheap. Yeah, but in the same breath, mate, we weren't going to offer him football. It wasn't going to happen. So it's tricky with that. It's tricky. Scott, do you know if there's any truth in the rumour that Harry Gray is going out on loan for the season to Sheffield United? I have seen that, mate. I don't know if there's much truth. I don't know if there's much truth. I don't really want us to know about the techniques you use in the shower. To be honest, I didn't really want to share it. Get that membership bought, everyone. If it's not a perk, I don't know what it is. Do we talk about me in the shower? Truthfully, yeah. Maybe you could do a maybe you could do a watch along to Stacks Mustache TV. Maybe I could do that. I have seen he's been doing on YouTube. He's quite funny actually in his Stack, to be fair. Aronson has played his last match for us. Guy needs to go, even though Matty loves him to bits. I don't know if he will, you know. I don't know if he will. I think they'll give him a new contract, but I could be wrong. My bird used to say to me, get a cold shower, haha, never calmed me down, still jumped all over her. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough, Lee. Cheers for sharing that with us, mate. I must admit with cold showers, while we're on the subject, they don't really work, do they? Because as soon as you get back out the shower, your body's then got used to that cold temperature, so then you just start sweating again. So it's a bit of a waste of time, although I'm so warm right now. If I'm going to my mate's house to watch the England game tonight, if I go and I haven't had a shower, I will stink to the eye heavens. So it's nice that you guys can watch over a screen for me today and not watch in person, because if you're watching in person, the stench will be horrific. I think Aronson should stay as decent rotation player unless we get a great offer for him. Doesn't help that he's going to get minutes. We also need to do Gattuso. I'm not sure what you mean by that, mate. But yeah, I think Aronson will stay. I think they'll give him a new deal. I do think they'll give him a new deal. Scott, looking forward to seeing the dynamic duo tomorrow for the first time. You and Mike. Yeah, it should be a good crack. Should be a good crack. We do this every summer transfer window. Get excited over unrealistic targets. Stephen, mate, come on. Come on. Just enjoy the fun of pretending that all these are going to happen. I honestly do think we've got a good chance with all three. The chance that we sign all three is probably maybe limited. But I do think if you go down individually, I think there's a reason why we sign them, all of them. I think Wilson's the closest, but there's no one else in for Shea Charles. Southampton need a sale, so I think that's likely to happen. Brandt as well. Again, I think there's a good chance with Brandt. I think there's a good chance. We'll definitely watch you and Matty tomorrow. Can't wait. Matty, you're getting some serious credit here, mate. The two goats collab. Well, I won't go that far. There's only one goat in that, and it's definitely me. No, I'm joking. Tanaka will go. Maybe Gruev, Longstaff, Perry, James, Nonto, and maybe Bornau. Farke trusts Gruev, and he's happy playing a bit part role. This is such a good point with Ellen back when we're talking about who's going to go. It's not just the price you get for Gruev compared to the others. It's also that. It's also the fact that Gruev will be happy playing a bench option, and Farke trusts him. I don't see Gruev leaving this summer, and I think it's the same with Brendan Aronson, by the way, as well. In terms of the exits, the likes of Gruev or possibly Longstaff or even Tanaka, then possibly either, this is an interesting comment to read, and then either James or Nonto. I agree that Gruev won't leave. Tanaka maybe if we get a good offer. Yeah, I think we agree there. Also, Straug is judged as homegrown, so all profit. Yeah, he is. He's pure profit. Obviously, though, if anyone doesn't know, I know I've mentioned this on the channel before, so apologies for people who've heard this before, but the SCR is slightly different to PSR, because with SCR, essentially, rather than if you sold under PSR, if you sold Pascal Straug for say 20 million quid, you would get £20 million straight on your books. With SCR, it doesn't work like that anymore. You would essentially get 6.6 million recurring over 3 years. So you get 6.6 million this year, 6.6 million next year, and 6.6 million in the third year. So it works slightly differently. Aronson does split opinions. I saw him when he arrived in the U team. A great volley goal, but looked lost in discussions. Brings energy. Is this the type of player we need? I don't think Aronson's the type of player we need long term, mate, if I'm honest. I don't think he's the type of player we need long term. However, as a stopgap while we're the team who's trying to make sure we stay in the division, I do think it makes a bit of sense for a player that can come on in the Etihad or Anfield when we're winning a game. Even, to be honest, even if we're beating Coventry 2-0 at home in the 80th minute, and you're like, we want someone to come on, disrupt their build up at the back, which Aronson can do really well, be a good presser, bring energy. Even for games like that, Aronson will have a useful role. He will. And I thought, to be honest, that was the role he was going to play this season. When you looked at what we did at the start, but it didn't really work like that, and he ended up featuring a lot more and was obviously the most played player last season minutes-wise. But I think that's kind of the situation. Tanaka just needs to have a huge World Cup moment or two, and it could stick a few quid on his value, so it's worth selling him. Yeah, probably, mate. Yeah, probably. Cold showers work well in cold weather to kickstart your day. This is true, mate. It's good for your skin, actually, as well. Charles say he wants the Leeds deal. I've seen this. I have seen this. I don't know where I've seen it from, but so which is why I haven't brought it up in the show, but I did see that. Doing a Goetze, Mario Goetze scored the winner for Germany. He did score the winner for Germany, yeah. With one kick of football. I see what you mean. I now get it. Messi, Sonda, Paul, Musa proving that MLS is growing up. Maybe we can get an Aronson sent back to America. I think they're, if you look at them players though, they're all a bit older, aren't they? So I don't know. What do you reckon to the Elvedi rumours? I don't fully believe them, mate, if I'm honest. I don't fully believe them because, for me, I haven't seen anything to tell us that we're going to go for an extra centre-back. I've always said that we need to do this. We play with 3 centre-backs in this current system. So, for me, we need 5 centre-backs because if you play with 2 centre-halves in your team, you need 4. So, surely if you play with 3, you need 5, really. So, I think we need 5 centre-backs anyway. So, Elvedi, for me, makes a lot of sense. But I'm not sure I see Bornau leaving the football club. And if Bornau doesn't leave, I can't see Elvedi being our left-sided centre-back replacement to Strauch. That will make any sense. That would be really bad business. And I don't think the football club will do it. And we've also been told by really reliable outlets that Krejci is the player for that position. So I don't fully believe it, if I'm honest. But it could be true. It was not in terms of homegrown. He meant basically that he's a player that's got 0 book value, which Strauch has. We definitely need some wingers, and getting Wilson would be so good. Wish we had the transfer window closer to the games so that we could see them sooner in action. True. Is that right? See, I'd read the opposite, but I thought SCR meant that it was going to be structured like that, but I could be wrong. I'll have another look. Aronson accidentally prevents us from playing much better players. True, but yeah, he does give a lot off the ball, I suppose. We need Aronson long term. He's creative and pacey with high work rate, presser, and energy. We just need someone better than him and more physical. Aren't you saying opposite statements there, Darts? I don't know if I'm reading that wrong. Harris is the player we need to send some less. That is true. How is it you're streaming, by the way? Trying to work out if it's StreamYard or OBS into Restream. It's OBS into Restream, mate. OBS into Restream. Smash like, subscribe, match. Yeah, if you could do that, everybody, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'm about to wrap up the show because 1, we've been going for nearly an hour now, and 2, I am sweating into oblivion, as you can tell. I'm just going to have a quick drink, and then I'll see if there's any more comments that we would go through, and then, yeah, leave it there. I get the argument for 5 centre-backs, but we also have James Justin who can cover in a dire emergency, and Purdue, so maybe we don't need another, although I'd like left centre-back cover ideally. Yeah, it's true. And also Shea Charles, you bring him in, can play centre-back as well. I wouldn't say Shea Charles could do it in... I wouldn't say Shea Charles can do it in a back 2, but in a back 3, I think he could do it. I keep forgetting Jack Harrison is here. Hate to be reminded of that. Yeah, apologies to anyone that we've had to mention Jack Harrison's name. Okay, nice. Trying to work out how you pull up individual comments. That's always been tricky with OBS in my experience. Truthfully, mate, I can tell you this on DMs because it's taking too long to explain, but I've built my own code to do it, essentially. There isn't code to do it. I've built my own. How are England getting on tonight, Scott, before you go? 4-0, I reckon. Yeah, I'll go 4-0, actually. Yeah, I think I'd actually go with that. I think we'll win easy. I actually think, I mean, we're not talking about England too much because there's a lot of people who watch channel not England fans, but I actually think England's biggest strength's the manager, which I know is controversial because I know he's German, but I think you can talk about Kane and Bellingham, and obviously they're brilliant players, but I think the manager's our biggest strength. And I actually think England will go quite far, but I could be wrong. Harrison, Vober, Schmidt, Joseph, all still here, and Large and Joffe, true, and they're all players that could do. I don't see the ads. I thought it was a hydration break. Yeah. Don't use Twitch, mate. Don't use Twitch. Anyway, thank you all for watching. As always, as I said, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff does massively help the channel as I quest towards 2,800 subscribers. So you can help in that goal. That'll be absolutely fantabulous. But other than that, people, I will see you all tomorrow, and potentially tomorrow, I think we are. I think by the end of this week, people, we are going to get a verdict on Wilson, Brandt, and probably Darlow. And I expect actually that some people are going to come. And I will take the camera into the shower, of course, because I know you guys would love that. No, I'm joking. But yeah, unless you remember, of course. Just me and Matty on our own. I might have another member, I'm not sure. Anyway, thank you all for watching, everybody. And I will see you all tomorrow. I am working tomorrow as well, so it will be an evening stream again. But I'll see you then. Bye for now.